Hi, everyone. This is Product Mind, RG, Ezinne and Ted, with a job session. And today we're talking about a book. We're talking about an idea, a concept that we've talked about in the past, and we turned into a book. The author is Ted Yang, and it's a Product Mind book. And so I'm going to go straight to Ted to introduce the idea, the genesis of the idea, and then we're going to talk about it and the impact on the real lives of people.
All right. Awesome. So some of you may remember our Substack post from last year about peaks prolonged and the ability of AI to really do this. So, we were all talking about this, and I thought that it would be worth expanding this into a book form because there's just a lot that I think people need to know about how to make it real, right? The vision of using AI to enhance ourselves, I think, is right. I think it's a good lane for us to be in. We've spoken many times about how we don't think AI is just going to come for people's jobs. But if you don't have AI as part of your toolkit, if you're not working with AI, then it's coming for your job, right? But that in and of itself is not enough. And so the genesis from the book came out of that. And really, the book is now called Ageless Peak Performance. So like a little bit of an elaboration on our previous title. And the thesis of it is as follows. So we all know that as you get older, you get wiser, or you should get wiser, right? And the idea is you develop more crystallized knowledge. You develop the ability to look at a situation and map it to your previous experience and think more carefully and more strategically about it. But unfortunately, your memory, your raw processing power, your speed declines. This creates two different curves. And the idea of the book, the thesis of what's there and what three of us believe profoundly is that AI as a cognitive leverage tool changes that game. You don't have to tolerate that declining peak while your strategic thinking is getting stronger. You can leverage AI to be part of your team. You can be the conductor of an AI orchestra of agents. You could be the AI human hybrid with AI superpowers, and you could be out there doing the work in an amazing way for a prolonged peak. So not 10 to 15 years between 30 and 55 or roughly like that, but maybe 30, 40, 50 years, and maybe conceivably until you don't want to anymore. So that is the thesis of the book. That is what I expand upon. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Ezinne, jump in here. Let me know if I got any of that story wrong, but also, what you guys think about that and, your thoughts on whether that applies to the workplace today or if it's a little bit too wishful thinking.
Okay, let me jump in. So yes, I think we've been a little besotted with this thing because we talk about the intersection of technology and society all the time. And me, I think like it's good to speak through a series of vignettes, which is if everyone has access to artificial intelligence to inference, essentially, what does that look like? Like if at 6 years old or maybe 3 years old, 3-year-olds use iPads all the time. So let's just call it 3. At 3, you have access to LLMs that have 1,000 PhDs, 10,000 PhDs. How does life change exactly? And I think what, Ted is elaborating on this book is that by the time you're 10, 15, you'll be super lethal. If you're a very curious person, and you have access to all this knowledge, but also internal motivation. It's just not about knowledge. In this world today, a lot of people have knowledge they don't use because the cost of information is zero. But if you have knowledge and motivation, you can be producing as well as a 25-year-old or 30-year-old who has motivation. And you can keep doing this for a long, long time till you're 70. And oh my God, that changes the equation for humans. Now, it's not about that reality. The book is about how to let you make that reality real for yourself, right? And that's the most important thing. So I don't know what Ezinne has to think, but we can get into it.
So the what am I most excited about, Ted, honestly, is that you took the idea, and I love the fact that yes, it's an idea that we've talked through, but you're making it real, right? Because one of the biggest things that I think is happening in this AI world, there are lots of thoughts, lots of ideas, things that people are thinking about, principles and theories and what will happen, what will not happen. And what I like is that feels more like a manual of, hey, here is how you can actually make this happen. Science tells us in so many ways that, I mean, the reality is I have a lot of downloaded apps trying to help with my cognitive ability, right? Because you are programmed to believe that, yes, there will be decline. So what's exciting, and I'm noticing, is this ability for us to truly find new workflows using these tools, and as a result, actually produce more. Uh, have someone, what's that thing called? Have a sounding board actually with AI. So those are the kind of things I'm excited about that you cover in the book. So yeah, I mean, good
Cool.
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is why the subtitle is Playbook, right? So it's the
Mm-hmm.
playbook for AI powered excellence. Because I think, look, we're all operators, right? We're not here to pontificate, or at least we're not here to pontificate without providing follow up about how to make that relevant for you, right? We don't know any other way to do it, frankly. So that's a lot about what this is. The purpose of it, and it's really to be that manual. It's really to give you those instructions necessary.
Yeah.
So OG was just talking about younger people, and I think that's right. I don't want this people to look at this and be like, listen, I'm 30, I'm 20, I mean 15. I don't need this book, right? Well, the reality of this is you can come up the curve faster as well, right? This is you don't need to wait. And the story I like here, which I always get a little bit wrong, but I think my version is better, is the high school student who took a lot of data from NASA, okay, and processed hundreds of thousands of star data to find new star systems, okay, and he did it using online AI tools and a publicly available database, right? And the people at NASA, not that they couldn't do it, they just hadn't gotten around to it, right? And so here's someone that's not even finished with high school, okay, that's working on stuff that PhD astrophysicists working for NASA work on, okay? That's crazy. And there's no way this person could have done this without AI tools to bootstrap his knowledge and then do his work, right, as in kind of agentic orchestration, right? There's no way,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to go through all that schooling, learn all that math before you're even ready to code the programs
Yeah.
necessary. Instead, not necessary to do that, right? And that is the point. It's you get up to the peak faster, you stay there faster. It's longer.
It's not even that. One of the things from your story is actually the democratization, right? Honestly, it is this democratization of capability. And the people who will peak, the people who are great, can get to that greatness faster, right? A part of me is also nervous because those who don't have access don't have access, and we know AI just continues to increase the gap, right, that exists in the world. So that's one major thing in the back of my head. The second one is honestly the way we teach in school. So you know how Audrey talked about the older people, then we talked about the 30-year-olds. And now when I think about the age of this person, right, in their teens, um, they were curious. They had skills. They had the ability to ask these types of questions. And as a result, we're able to, and this AI world democratizes everything for them. So that's good. But not everybody thinks that way, right? So the question is, there now needs to be a shift in how we teach and get people to really be curious and to explore and try and discover. So that's the other thing that's back on my head. But I mean, again, the excitement for me is not only is it increasing peak performance because we can now crank, it actually creates a democratization in ways I don't need to know everything. What excites me about this story, it's not even just about this team being able to do, I mean, if you think about it, the core part of it is that AI democratizes and makes accessible things that were probably not accessible. Like you said, you'd have to finish high school and all these other things, but think about it. He has access to data. He has access to synthesis, crunching, data processing that most we normally wouldn't have access to. And the LLMs have them already. So not only does this period, these technologies, not only do they allow you to synthesize and improve your workflow for those who have known workflows in their mid-career, et cetera. For those coming up, they can imagine different things. They can test and experiment faster than they ever would have. So you actually get to your peak faster. So for those curious geniuses, right? You can get to that genius even faster than most. Not only about prolonging, it's like you can actually truly peak sooner than most people would. I mean, the person that I am, obviously, I'm worried about what about those who just don't have access, right? That gap
uh,
continues to increase,
uh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether it's my cousin sitting in, or my second cousin sitting somewhere in Anambra State in Nigeria, right, that doesn't have an LLM to have access to, the gap is just going to continue to get bigger. And then the other piece is, for those who have graduated, who have learned to think a certain way through college, are our professors, are our teachers really ready to teach the high schoolers, the primary school, elementary school people how to use this technology so they can actually explore and get to their peak as soon as, as soon
Yeah.
as they are able. So that's
so,
just back in my head.
Well,
uh,
everyone needs to buy a copy of the book, so there you go, and then they can figure that out right there.
so I guess the thing I want to do is dive into all these like really hard questions of
Mhm,
education, of inequality, of you know, even time. But I won't do that. I guess there are two specific things, Ted, I want you to talk about. One is this AI age is changing very fast. Even in the last month or so, we've seen capabilities get to the point that autonomy is becoming really, really strong. Like you have LLMs that can do work for days and get to result. That's what's happening with Codex 5.3, with
mhm,
Opus 4.6.
Yeah.
So we're writing a book about human peaks and giving people a manual about human peaks, but that's going to change. So we've talked a little bit about our strategy for keeping people at the peak of the peak, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
how are we going to keep people fresh with this
Yeah.
thing that we write?
So I mean, that's a good point, right? This technology is just going to make things go faster, and like the pace of the improvement is also increasing, right? So we're really getting that exponential increase right now. We're seeing the benefits of it. Um, Look, I think the key is to reframe this, right? As you were talking about, like what people are learning in schools and why that needs to change, right? And the first, I think it's a fundamental reframing, right? Like this is cognitive leverage on a completely different scale that previous tools have been, right? And the book talks about kind of the evolution of this, but it talks about writing, for example, right? It talks about the printing press, okay? Because all of those, by the way, were resisted by people, just like AI is resisted. But the key here is, as it moves on to more fuller and fuller autonomy, what is the role of the human involved? And right, why do I need to be involved? And the book goes through
Mm,
that in the principles section, right? So
yes.
just to lay out exactly how this works. First, we talk about the history, we talk about tools, then we talk about principles, and then we talk about superpowers, which is the utilization.
Yeah.
The
mhm,
key of the principles are that they are meant to be evergreen. They're meant to be, look, it doesn't matter whether you're using fully automated, okay, 4, 6, 5, 8.8,
Eight,
9.10.
10.0.
10.3.
Okay, I don't care what it is. I don't care who it is. There are certain things that are there, and we'll go backwards, right? The fourth principle is keep your judgment at the center, and I think we all agree this is critical, right? Because yes, the window in which it can beaver away and code and do amazing things is longer. End of the day, the person that's saying this is good or bad is you. The person that's responsible for lassoing that tool to the work and making sure that it's tightly coupled with what you're trying to deliver is you, right? It's just
Mhm,
you with this huge rocket engine, right? Or this self-guided missile or whatever, and it's just going off. But if you don't point it in the right direction, that's on you, right?
Can I
And
can I
so,
ask a quick question on this? Because I completely agree, but one of the things that occurs to me is that given the averages of humans, some of us don't have very good judgment. So, like, if I'm a manager, no, I'm serious. If I'm a
I agree.
manager,
I don't know if anyone admits that, but okay.
no one admits that, obviously, Dunning Kruger. But if I'm a manager, I have a spread of intelligences in my team, and we all buy the book, which is desirable, by the way. Go buy the book,
That's it.
mhm,
and and everyone has it, but not everyone has good judgment. Like, how should I think about that? Like,
Yes.
if I say you are in the seat, which I believe, like, I obviously I'm delusional. I think I have good judgment, but like, how should I think about that as a leader?
So there's a couple things there, right? So I think you're 100% right. So let's go back to schools. Schools need to teach judgment, right? So
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm actually at one of the schools which I oversee, or I'm on, at least on the board of, right this second. And one of the things that we need to think about in terms of curriculum is really saying, let's make sure the students that walk through the door and walk out have critical thinking skills, right? That
Hmm.
they have judgment, okay? Because this is not a given, as you say, and it's important. But even
Maybe
then,
that is a full role of schools, is teach judgment.
100%.
If this is the thing that is the kernel of the principle, then
Yeah.
judgment is the thing you teach versus facts, because LLMs have facts.
LLMs have facts, just like Google had facts, right? But now, of course, even with that, you'll still get a bell curve distribution of judgment, okay?
Hmm.
Yes.
And so the
Hmm.
question still is, if you are leading a team and people are now powered up, who does what, right? And this goes back to the conductor orchestration model, which we go through in the book, right? Which is this: in the future, right, as opposed to now, your function is more like the conductor of an orchestra than any player in an orchestra. And
Hmm.
again, if you don't listen to orchestras, that's fine. But just understand that the conductor of an orchestra has no instrument. They cannot make any sound. All they can do is get other people to make sounds, right? And more importantly, every person in that orchestra is better at their particular instrument than the conductor. It is literally impossible, because you get the best possible person to play violin, the best 20 people possible to play violin, right? The best possible bassist, the best possible bassoonist, whatever. Okay.
Hmm.
There's nothing that the conductor can do to tell that person how to do their job better. However, the conductor can pull all the power together, create something sublime, right?
Hmm.
And move people to the right place. Okay. That is judgment on a different level, right? And that is a skill that needs to be practiced, and that's something that can be augmented. And again, just like in an orchestra, you're not all going to be as good as you need to be at the same time, at the same instrument. Just not possible. You need to bring all those different voices together. I think implied in a lot of the things we've talked about is the number of human voices versus the number of AI voices. That mix is changing,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
5 years ago, 100% human. 5 years from now, I don't think it's 100% AI, but it's 100% humans with AI. I guarantee you that. Okay.
Yes.
So now the question is, to what degrees and how we got to get there. Again, there's a lot to this. We can talk about it, but it does start with judgment. And it starts also with some of the other principles, which just let me just quickly go through some of these.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
go through
let's
the
talk about.
third,
Isn't it? Do you have
the
anything to say? But and
no,
because I
no.
really
I
want to
mean,
hear the
again,
next few principles.
fundamentally, it's really how do you teach judgment? We talk about the human in the middle, and I know we talk about agents plus humans, but even those agents who will be doing very specific things in their specific task, you still need a human to assess the quality and the bar, etc. So it comes down to this idea of who is the expert, who is fine
Mhm.
tuning, and who's owning the ultimate decision. Because AI will help get you to the 99.9 whatever, right? But there still needs to be a human who can take a look at it all and make a call
Right.
in the end. So that discernment and judgment is still
On that
critical.
before we go into other principles, right?
Hmm.
One of the examples in the book is to talk about trading, which is where I'm from. I'm from finance, right?
Hmm.
Or hedge funds and trading. Audrey and I both worked at Bridgewater.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I don't know if people understand this or not, but humans don't trade anything anymore. Okay. All they are at best are pilots of algorithmic systems. Okay. Because these things trade in,
Judgment. Judgment.
that's right. And the key is the job of most people, and this has not changed in the 20 years, 30 years, 40 years since technologies really started to, even in the 80s, people were implementing automatic trading technology. Okay. Just the speed and the degree just, gone crazy. But
Yeah, and the intelligence within the
it's just
system itself is
wow, it's,
gone.
it's
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so this is a very good harbinger of what's going on in other places, which is the human has one major function, which is to know when the system is outside of its bounds and it is not going to function correctly. And they say,
Mm. That's a
pause,
good metaphor. That's a good
breathe,
metaphor. I love it.
breathe.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Can I just drop this as well for people? Because we try to go deep here. Imagine that 10 people, all from, let's just be crass and say the dumbest to the smartest, right? But 10 scientists write papers, and then you train LLM on all the papers. What's going to happen is that it will learn from the very best, right? The Einsteins, and it'll learn from sort of the also ran academics. and its intelligence will say average somewhere between sort of the 70th and 80th percentile. Like it's going to be skewed to obviously the high intelligence. Now, if you ask the LLM something, it'll be thinking at about 70 to 80% of the smartest person in the group. Okay. Immediately that's useful, right? Because you're using, if you're not an expert at all, you can have a tool that is 80% close to the percentile close. But if you are a peak performer, if you're that person who wrote the elite article, the LLM doesn't help you as much, right? In fact, what you need to do is probably like have it do mundane things, but you need to break new ground for it.
That's
right?
right.
So that the next thing can learn. So the way to think about this is that it elevates everyone's, like even bad judgment, people with bad skills, it elevates everyone. But if you want to be peak, which is why you should read this book, there are very specific ways you have to use AI in order to be peak, right?
That's right.
And this is what we get into. And
That's
so when we say judgment, we're really talking to people who want to be outliers, right? How do you use these things? And you have to put your judgment in there. Otherwise, you'll be getting 70, 80% of performance, which is not what you want to
right.
do.
And listen, let me just
Yeah.
quickly say, we all need to be there in your careers, because if you're not as good as that, then you're not needed. Okay. Let's go back to the orchestras. How do people not listen to orchestras anymore? Because I can listen to the best performance of the best orchestra, okay, on perfect digital reconstruction like that. Okay. So that doesn't mean I don't want live orchestra. That's actually something different. And that's why I think that human art is still going to
prevail.
yeah, I think it'll be still important. But if I want the best, performance, right? I want Pavarotti, okay? I don't want just Pavarotti. I want his best performance of his entire life of Nessun Dorma, not just anyone, okay? I can find that. He himself can't do better. He's dead, of course, but even when he was alive, he couldn't do better. Okay?
It's very morbid, Ted.
I'm just saying, he couldn't beat himself, okay? So think about that. Now, you can now have this tool, and you need to be the outlier, my friends. Average will not keep you employed. Average will not keep you employed. You need to be the best or very close to the best. You got to be 3+ sigma away. Okay, because if you're just 80 percentile, not good enough. 1 sigma, not good enough. Okay, so but to go back to these principles, because I think the whole point of this is
let's get to another principle. We can go for it. You
right,
want to?
so we've talked a lot about principle 4, right? Which is, again, keep your judgment at the center. So we've touched on this principle 1, which is treat AI like an intern and not an oracle. Now, this is the first principle for a reason, because this is something that people may grasp but not truly fully understand what the deal is. And Ochi actually just gave away the answer, which is how LLMs are trained, right? Which is, first of all, and it's interesting because ChatGPT literally today just announced 5.3, which is less fawning. Amazing. Our new feature is it's less fawning. Okay. What the hell? It's unbelievable. It's like, this is what advancement is.
Recalcitrant intern. That's what we have now.
That's what we have. Like, this is like, we've changed the behavior of your intern. Like, that is new innovation. But that's interesting because it shows that what really makes it useful is its ability for humans to control it, right? That's fascinating. And OpenAI understands that, obviously, because that's what their new feature release is, apparently. I haven't played with it yet. But treat AI like an intern, right? A super smart intern that has trained on a lot of stuff, but has no applicable experience. It cannot discern amongst the different things that it knows. You have to do that, right? So it can't be an oracle. It can't give you a single answer. And I think if there's one thing that a lot of people who use AI do, is they try to treat it like Google. Google has trained us, right? That there is an answer and it will find it. But the reality of it is, that's not the kind of work that you should be using AI for, because that kind of work, literal just knowledge retrieval work, was already like obsoleted by Google. Okay? People's jobs of literally just being like, I have the answer. Who does that anymore? Now it's think it through, but same way that you would not have your intern think it through and then present it to your CEO, you should not do that with AI, right? And so that's that principle. And again, the why of it is the nature of how LLMs are trained. The fact that they do average okay, what comes into there because they're trained on a huge data set, or they need to be trained on a huge data set, right? And again, that's not to say if you have no experience, it's going to be better than you. But if you are top of your field, it is not better, right? But now, of course, the key is most people reading this book are not at the top of their field. So then, how do I use it? Follow the principle, right? That is a lot of what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
isn't it? Do you any thoughts on this? Like this
I
intern thing,
mean,
because I think it's a very set of interesting set of ideas here. In the age of AI. I have one question I have for Ted, but what do you
but
think?
I mean, I think this is so critical. And actually, the new feature for ChatGPT scares me because, like an intern, right? No, think about it. An intern, they're an intern because they're pleasers and trying to be, always selling you. So if someone is an intern, so just imagine all those movies you watch where it's a 37-year-old intern, right? And they present as not as fawning, but they still don't have experience because they haven't been in. You may end up lowering your guard, right?
And
So that's the only tricky thing in all of this. But my observation, you are spot on. A lot of people truly go in and say, "What do you think?" Oh, Oracle, oh, Claude, tell me
right,
the answer. And they turn off their brains,
Oh,
right?
Claude, I
Claude,
can see a religious cult now
right,
worshiping
right?
LLMs.
I mean, let's be frank.
and
Even in coding, you give it your spec. You make Claude give you the spec, then Claude builds the thing. Then people have learned now they're actually asking Claude to check its own work, which is
that's right.
good, right? But the reality is, the people who truly will have exponential leverage are people who can actually truly challenge what is being delivered to them. So this, I think, is a fundamental difference from those who will be average and maybe one sigma above, and those who truly will outliers and stand apart. Seeing it as a true intern, a true buddy, but one that you want to spar with. I think if you keep that sparring mentality, I think that's truly where this will sing for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? That interactivity, right? And using the chat interface in a way that's actually productive, right? You can have meaningless conversations with a human too. Oh, wow, that was really nice. Oh, thank you so much. That was really good. Like, that doesn't accomplish anything, right? Actual feedback does accomplish something on both directions, right? And
Uh-huh.
so,
Yeah,
so this is why, again, the Oracle, you don't talk to the Oracle like that. The Oracle is the boss; it knows everything. The
Uh-huh.
intern,
yeah.
though, your job is to educate it. Your job is to train it, not just to your own preferences, but to make it more effective. Right? That goes back again to the conductor model. That goes back to the future of how people need to work with AI. It's not enough just to say, give me the answer. It's repeatable. That's the key. How can you make it repeatable? Because then you don't need to be there every day.
So one of the things that I think about, everyone is hopefully people have been following the open Claude thing, and I just want to maybe just briefly say a warning. Like one of the reasons this blew up in the computing world was that Claudebot seemed emergent, right? It was very, very persistent. So you give it a amorphous problem and it would just persistently try to solve it. So people would wake up in the
1 out of
morning
10.
and it would have written scripts, applied for jobs, all kinds of things, sometimes even security exploits in order to accomplish its goals. But all this emergent behavior does not mean um, that you should bow down to it. I don't think. I think it's super important that people think about this. I think the best metaphor, this intern thing is so powerful, is that you have a human level intelligence that you can direct, you can
Mhm.
nurture to accomplish your goals. Really, really important. Let's give an example. You hire a very good financial analyst intern. They don't have years of knowledge of how to deal with clients, which is the most difficult thing, how to crunch
Mhm.
all the different scenarios and numbers. Well, because they're out of MBA Harvard, they are very emergent, right? They can solve long running problems for 2 weeks by themselves, but they still lack certain kinds of experiences. We should think about it that way, right?
Yeah.
Emergence itself, power, cognition is not enough to sort of get away from the intern relationship. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very important if you want to operate at peak. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's something happens when an LLM does something surprising. It's because we've underestimated it, and it's like, holy crap, like you just broke through the Turing trap. But no, humans surprise us all the time, and we still treat them like interns. So just a quick warning for
There you
people
go.
who,
There you
yeah,
go. And
Yeah.
bridging into the next principle, which is all
yeah,
about right? So
mhm,
principle two is aim first, then accelerate, because it's saying that steering is the key here, right?
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
And again, we have talked about this in the context of the 3 speed problem, right? Which is, wow, developers can crank out 10x more stuff. What do product managers do? But the same idea is here for kind of the genericized work, which is this. Okay, you strap on the rocket engine, you go to the wrong place if you don't aim properly. And that is, again, your judgment, your wisdom. But I think the key here is as those cycles get longer, right? Because it's I'm playing around with a lot of AI generated video right now, and there's a certain amount of time that basically has about 5 seconds. You can make it useful. If you try anything longer than that, it just simply does not work. The prompts revert, and really weird things happen. That will, of course, get longer and longer and longer. Which means, of course, if you just give it really dumb instructions, you'll waste that much more time in compute. Right before you figure it out, and if God forbid you just let it go on its own and expect it, like, here's my movie, I'm just going to tell you, give me an action movie, like, what the hell is going to come back? So the aiming, right, and it's not just one shot, right? The concept of how do you develop aiming systems, okay? The guidance
I
systems. Now,
like, I like, I like
Mm-hmm.
guidance systems as a
Good.
metaphor.
right? It's because you can't just point. You got to be like, well, guess what? Like, the guided missile, like along the way, maybe you need to like get around, some mountain, or maybe some fighter comes in to try to intercept you or whatever, and you got to dodge it, right? So it's a system for guidance, not just aim. So aiming is critical. That's principle two. It is important whether you're talking about an intern or something you've got well trained, because even in that standpoint, you need to understand, and this goes, so much of this is critical thinking and judgment. When you're talking about applying it to a different domain, you need to understand that the aim is just not going to be perfect, right? You need to perfect the aim, right? And that this is kind of obvious when you think about this, because you would not do this for other things, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
if you're a doctor and you've never done a certain type of operation, unless it's an emergency, you just don't jump in there doing it. You talk to someone who's already done that type of operation. You try to learn from them, right? That's
That's,
smart, reasonable human behavior. It is same thing when you're talking about AI agent behavior. No different.
isn't it? Do you have any quick thoughts on the aim
Yeah.
principle?
As Ted was talking, it just reminds me of some of the work we're doing 10 years ago with particularly Melissa's book, Escaping the Build Trap, where people were building crap, right? Just building. It's like fire, then aim, right? And I think that one of the
Ready,
challenges,
fire, aim.
yeah, right, ready, fire, aim. One of the challenges,
There's an actual book called Ready, Fire, Aim, by the way.
aim.
Right.
One of the challenges with AI is that AI, before AI, there were constraints, and constraints made you think. Constraints made you really pay attention to what is it that I want to do, right? Why is it I want to do? There were costs associated with things, and I think costs still remain. People haven't figured it out. People are laying off to address some of their cost issues, but I'm seeing people begin to automate workflows without clarity on if that's the most efficient workflow. We're seeing people generate all sorts of content without being really clear on who they're trying to address it for. People are building software without clarity of what problem they're trying to solve. And it is exacerbated with AI. So I think that this principle is critical. It kind of takes you back to the basics. What in fact is your strategy? Why
Mm-hmm.
are you doing this thing? Because
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that AI magnifies whatever it is you aim at. And if you've aimed
Mm.
incorrectly, it's going to be your problem. If your um, direction isn't clear, right? AI will only make you wrong faster, right? So it's this idea of truly refining. You know, I have always thought of product management as a craft, like a real sacred craft.
Uh-huh.
And I think this sits in that place of really using AI. And before you start to accelerate, do the refinement, do the review, do that uh that craft work. Anyway, it was
Can I
spiritual for me.
I want to remind people though of, like, for those who know us, this was the first product mind book, Building Rocket Ships. one of the things that we tried to establish in the first chapter was the value of product. And even though we talked about it as product as a skill set, it really fits into this idea, which is you have 10 developers. They haven't talked to customers. They know technology. They haven't talked to marketers. They build something. You spent like $1 million on them, let's say. They're going to be wrong maybe 50% of the time. And so in theory, let's just be simple. You've wasted $500,000, right? And their return on investment is 50% of the population. You reduce the team, you put 9 developers, and you bring 1 product manager. The function is AIM. The function is talk to customers, talk to marketers, and then the feature adoption rate goes to 70%. You still spend $1 million where you make more profit because you aimed. So this is why product managers exist, first of all. Although we're becoming product builders and it's complicated and more, we have hyper creators now. It's the same principle with this. You're no longer in a Panzer or a fast car. You are riding a rocket ship. It makes even more sense to aim. Like all the time, like sometimes people will take a day to aim, a week to aim, a month to aim. This is why in real product organizations that are doing new things, they don't do agile, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
heading to new frontiers,
Doesn't
you
work.
take the time you need to aim because then it makes the cycle better and faster. And so this is the embodiment of that principle.
This is in sync, right? I mean, we need to move on, but I think the key about this is really about time and energy, right? And as you know, and yes, let's not gloss over the fact that data centers consume power and water and these things, but the AI powered nature of it allows it to go beaver off, in the middle of the night and do all that work. Right. This is, I remember teams, they're global teams where it's like it goes off to India and China and they do the coding. And then the next day, right, they've coded something. Right. And then you try to like change that cycle and it's impossible. So you basically re-aim once a day. Now the same thing goes, but the cycles are much faster and it's more powerful. Right. And so again, this is why you got to do it. So
okay, 4th principle. Let's go.
Let's jump onto the 4th principle here. And we've talked about a little bit of this because we talked about workflow and we talked about, a lot of the entire purpose of a lot of applications, right, is workflow and understand. But now what is the purpose of AI? So the 3rd principle is make AI flow. And by this, we mean flow as a kind of official like flow state definition, which we can go into more, but it's outlined in the book. But the idea of flow state is think about athletes, right? Think about people who are performing at their peak, which again, that's the goal of this book and that's what you're going to get. You're trying to not think about AI. It is supposed to be seamless. You're not buried in the details, right? Because if you're buried in the details, you're not just performing. And this, there have been countless interviews from everyone from LeBron James to Kasparov, to musicians to whatever. They don't think about what they do it, right? It's in their muscle memory. It's in their minds. They are ready to operate. And this is the point and the ultimate goal of using AI as a tool is that the tool itself is not the point, right? The tool gets you to where you need to be, and then you're able to function in an effortless way, right? This, I think is super important because it is somewhat different than the rest of the principles and somewhat different than everything else. And there's a built-in danger there, right? Which is to say, are you saying, am I, Ted, saying, just go and trust it and go do it? No, that's not what we're saying, right? What we're saying, very specifically is that there is a goal here, right? The goal here is to, again, factoring in aim, factoring in judgment, factoring in intern, all that. But your goal, when do you stop, right? What is the end state? In the end state, you are superpowered, you are getting things done, and you're not focused on AI in and of itself.
Yeah, can I just jump in? Can I just jump in here? I think the essence of this principle to me is that if you're doing this right, if you're going to be a peak performer, then once you get all the other principles correct, you should have this feel like it wraps around you and just supports you. That's the thing. Like the worst thing that we see people using artificial intelligence for work or for play is when the toil of managing it is significant. so that they have to think about managing it, if that makes any sense.
Right.
We're going from a world where people essentially manage software. Like email helps us, but it's a huge burden, right? A lot of document creation, futzing with Word and so on, helps us, but it's a huge burden. It takes from you as well as it gives to you. The promise of artificial intelligence right now, I guess I'll give you an example. You can write very easily, create a Word document without doing it yourself in Claude. It feels very satisfying because it feels like you're getting all the benefit immediately, right? Except from obviously prompting correctly. So this principle is very subtle. The next set of tools and the people who use them well will make this fit them like a glove. Once they've figured out the system, figured out the judgment, figured out the aiming, is that it will augment you. It will support you so that you can just think and be helped, if that makes sense. That's what it means to me.
Yeah. Again, think Iron Man, right? Iron Man suit.
Yes, that's
Right?
exactly.
He's thinking specifically, I need to go use my hand laser or whatever. It's too late, right? You just want to go like that, and you're shooting, you're killing bad guys. That's what has to happen, right? That's what has to happen. There's a lot, to this, and we're about out of time.
This is very exciting. Again, we started out with a single article, which Ted ran with and created a whole book around. But the book is about eternal principles of how to use artificial intelligence. We went through 4 of them. And inside is not just principles, but how to actualize this. So if you get the book, it goes through the principles that remain the same, the actions, given where AI is. The plan actually is that maybe yearly, every couple of years, we will revise those actions because the tools will be different. The principles will stay roughly the same. The way that you orchestrate all these things, the tools that we have available will change dramatically. And so stay tuned. You should get this book in order to be a peak performer, to be one of the people who power the world, who are outliers. You will see the tools that will help you do that today, right? And as the state of the art moves on, we will show you the state of the art as it moves on so that you can be an outlier.
Yep. That's exactly right. The agelesspeakperformance.com, right, is the website here, or you can also get to it through our productmind.co website, or obviously on this podcast as well. Plenty of ways to find it. It does not officially launch for a couple months now. But
Pre-
get there, pre-order it. We're gonna have more.
Pre-order,
Yeah,
wait
exactly.
list. It's
Wait
gonna
list,
be,
get
yes,
there.
go for it.
I'm doing all sorts of speaking all over the world. Go fly to Brazil and come see me in 2 weeks. But honestly, there's a lot of good stuff coming out of this. We do expect this to be kind of an evergreen topic, and we will come back to it again in a future chop session to really go through some more of the things here, and also how it applies to you. Right? We started by talking about how we got the kind of mid-career striver, the late career striver, the early career person. We need to go a little bit more deeply
Flesh it
into
out.
that.
Yes,
And give you
that's right.
more of that, right? So again, the book's got a lot of this detail, but of course, you come to us to kind of break it down, and that's what we're doing here. So more. Stay tuned. It's exciting that to work on this our second Product Mind book, I hope all of you like it. And if you don't like it, you can just not reply back. No, seriously, obviously, we want to hear your feedback, right? We want to hear your feedback. That is absolutely the case, whether you like it or not. That's just going to make a better product, right? That's the whole goal here, right? Whether it's AI or humans, we want to make better products.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.